All right, so this morning when I got to work, my one of my coworkers that I talk to occasionally, he's very rarely in the office. I started to tell him how my annual review went, and he just looked at me like millennial stain. It's time. You've got to get out of here. This place isn't good for you anymore. And then he started contemplating what would happen to his job because this company loves to absorb jobs and just force whoever's nearby to take that job. That's kind of how I got my job is that the senior manager 3 years ago decided that he was just going to go into the toilet. Like he just became a non-functional alcoholic and to the point where he just ended up in the hospital. And you're just like, this guy, I mean, he was nuts before, but he progressively got worse, and towards the end, the senior management of my company decided, you know what, you're just going to take over. There wasn't much training. There wasn't much at the time. There wasn't really a pay increase, which I thought was again I didn't understand that because, as you guys well know, I've worked for the minimum wage nearly my entire life. So I've never really had access to a high level position. I've always been either entry level or minimum wage. But after you spend so many years of being entry level and minimum wage, even you know when it's time to go. Like, there's no advancement in this job, there's no future in this job, there's nothing. It's just a dead end job. And when you start seeing it that way, because along for the few years, like my reviews, you can get up to a five, right? A five's the highest you can get. And my first year, I got all fives. My second year, everyone got threes, and this year I got a one on my review, and I'm like, you know what? This isn't about my work performance because if my work performance had truly gone from a five to a one, I would have been gone my first year. This is a management problem. And when you look at it from a management problem, management's tired of me telling them the things that are wrong. They don't want to believe the things that are wrong. And so today, when we were in our weekly meeting, I mean, they just looked around. They're like, this group is battered, beaten, and understaffed. And you're just kind of like, you're telling your employees that they should look for other jobs, is what I heard in that meeting. And so I was already on the sidelines. I already put in all of my time off, all of my remaining time off. I have already put it in for this year, and so I am just like I'm just going to charge really hard forward during the 2 weeks that of my vacation time, and I'm just going to just focus on finding. I mean, I'm not going to find anything the equivalent. I've already looked through Indeed. I've been looking through Indeed for months to get out of this company. Today I went a little harder looking for lower tier jobs. I started looking for $20 an hour jobs. So I vastly overqualified for most of the jobs that I applied to today. And I must have applied to like 20 jobs. And when you look at your qualifications and you look at the jobs, you just kind of think about it and you're like, I I don't know because I've been at jobs where you applied. I'm way overqualified for most of these positions, and they say to you things like, we think you'd be bored. We think you'd be bored means that you're not going to enjoy getting paid so little. And they look at it, and it's like, why would we waste our time hiring with someone with as much experience, as much education, and a an attitude towards work where I don't see work as anything more than a paycheck. They want to hire these people who come into work with this like super optimistic attitude, smiles every day, you're a company man, you do all this and that, you work nights, you come in on the weekends, you do a lot of extra stuff. Well, I did all that extra stuff for this company, and guess what happened? I still got treated like yesterday's used underwear that's got a big brown racing stripe against the back of the tidy whities. And I'm not going to tolerate that disrespectful nature of an employer treating you like that. like holding you out on a 5 foot stick and saying, "Oh my God, this is the worker." And I think my boss thinks that Gen Z can just take over. Like he sees how hard he works, and I'm like, dude, he's mental. Like he's not all there. Nice guy, but I mean, he's not all there. And unfortunately, with Gen Z, they don't really. I don't know if it's just like they're just pretending that everything's fine. Like the other day, I was talking to him, and then suddenly he's like, "All right, it's time for me to go home. I got to go home and be happy." And I'm like, what do you have to go home to be happy about? And I was just like, he's convinced himself that he's happy even though he's completely broke. Anyhow, with that said, we've got three talking points today. And I'm going to start with talking point number one. So these talking points were created after I did a large paragraph on ChatGPT explaining to the AI how I feel about work and where it's going and why I have to leave. So it wrote back. High turnover is often a signal of systemic issues like poor management, lack of support, or unrealistic demands. When no one seems to stick around, it's worth asking if staying is in your best interest. It's not in anyone's best interest. If it's been 3 years since you've gotten a pay raise, it's not in your best interest. And yesterday, they didn't have to tell me that I wasn't getting a pay raise. It was obvious that I wasn't getting a pay raise. And I kept asking them to set boundaries as to where my job stopped because as it is, I manage three separate office locations by myself. And I'm like, you know what, that seems like a lot of work. On top of that, I have my ordinary job, which is the management of the entire what do I call it, the entire hardware side of a large corporation. And you're just like, you can't continue to push someone in a job that's this complicated. And they just kind of looked at me like, if you can't do it, we'll find someone who can for half the price. I'm like, this is why your turnover is 150%. But anyhow, even Gen Z today said, man, the president has no idea how depressing it is to work in this office. And that's Gen Z saying that. Like, you see the amount of people just coming and going, and they keep questioning why they're not getting 40 to 60% more productivity across the board of the regular workers when there was only three people working this week and everyone else had better things to do. And the audacity they had today in the meeting, it's like there's only a couple of you here this week, but we encourage everyone to please use your vacation time. And I'm like, okay, you just told us that there was no one here. Work performance is low, morale is extremely low, and the amount of issues that are coming up with basic infrastructure just to seem outrageous. And you gotta just like look at it and like, why did this happen? Because you won't address the problems. Just because you don't want to admit that you have a toxic work environment doesn't mean it's not there. The amount of people at my job that are currently angry at Evil Corp is 100%. In fact, I was sitting there yesterday morning when one of my coworkers called my new boss, and he's like, "Nothing is working. Why can't you fix anything?" And my boss just got on the phone with one of the engineers, and he's like, "You're wrong." And this guy was not having it. Like he's actually a person who got a big raise this year, and he's again one of those people that just keeps his mouth shut. I won't. I won't keep my mouth shut, and that's why I'm looking for another job. At my next job, I'm going to be less friendly. That's 100% certain that at my next job, being friendly is not going to be something that I'm going to do, even with the people that are nice to me, because no matter who you talk to at your corporation, there's going to be some piece of crap a person that you talk to that's just going to take everything you say and go directly to your boss and say, you know what Millennial Steam said about this company? That it sucks and that it should burn down and that, he hates it here. And I was just like, and the worst part is the person that I know that did this felt the same way. And I'm like, because usually you share your feelings, your honest feelings, with people that have the same feelings, because it would be very much so, uh, what would I call this person? A piece of crap move to do this to another person after you said the exact same things. And that's exactly what this person did. And so my boss is yesterday during my review, he's just like, "You said this and this and this about Evil Corp," and I'm like, "Yep, and all those things are true." And he just kind of like, "Oh my god!" You could just tell he was just like, if he had his finger on the eject button, if he had that power right then and there, he would have pushed. He would have kept pushing it. He would have just like kept pushing. It's like, get him out of here. I don't want to hear that things aren't working and that people don't like this place. And I mean, the amount of people that start on Monday and you never see them again Tuesday afternoon is just like that. It's a normal thing. You're like, it took you 3 weeks to get onboarded and you were here for a day and a half. It's just so normal that even Gen Z, when he was telling me, uh, it's depressing working here because of how many people leave every day. It's just like, the upper level people don't feel anything. They don't feel the heaviness of working. It feels like I'm working in a morgue. Every day, more and more bodies show up to be embalmed, and that's it. It is never going to slow down because there's always going to be someone desperate enough. Because I can't wait to go leave a review, because I mean, I haven't looked at them, but from the people that have been hired around me, it doesn't look good. It looks awful. Anyhow, unrealistic demands, that's day one. They offer absolutely no training of any kind. Their demands are absolutely outrageous. And then they look at you like the biggest failure in the world when you can't do the crazy things that they ask you to do. And remember, this is after that bait and switch uh, interview with them, right? Where they tell you, well, this is going to be what you do. But besides these duties, you're also going to be responsible for all of these other things that we didn't tell you about in the interview. And also, we're going to start you at the lowest pay scale that we can, because, as they always say in the first job interview, you got to work your way up to the higher pay scale. Well, I've been here for years and I don't see myself working up. I asked for a job title change yesterday and they just looked at me like I was mentally ill. Like the amount of times that I look like I was just a person that they just wanted to be gone was incredible. I've never felt so belittled in my life, and then on top of that, be given a list of additional responsibilities that are stamped by the anti-human resources. Is just abominable. Anyhow, moving on to talking point number two. If you're always exhausted, anxious, or feeling stuck in survival mode, it's a major red flag that the work environment may be toxic or mismanaged. Or mismanaged and toxic. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I know that a lot of my workers don't have the happiest things to say every morning while they're getting fleeced. I mean, sometimes I'll call someone in the morning and I'm like, "Are you okay? Because it sounds like you're having a rough time there." And they'll be like, "God, Fleece has got me in the position. He's got my hands up against the wall. And I try to close my cheeks and I'm getting fleeced anyway." It's like, just be quiet. It'll be over soon. And they're like, "No, fleece is going for seconds." And you're like, "Oh God." It's like you just hang up the phone because you don't want to hear it. Oh my gosh, my poor coworkers. I mean, and the worst part is most Americans don't realize that they're getting fleeced. Like this morning, I saw an article, and this is how out of touch rich people are, that Joe Scarberry from Morning Joe on MSNBC was shocked to find out what eggs and milk cost. He's like, oh my God, how do poor people afford to live? And I'll tell you, we're not affording to live. We're stuck in the most awful survival mode that we have been as the proletariat in a very long time. And I'm talking about a person that's not, at the bottom of the pay scale. I may be soon, but I can't imagine having to work three jobs just to be in survival mode. But that's where we're moving to because these corporations don't want workers, they want slaves. And I have tried to not think about I since last week, since I got in trouble at work, which has been exactly 2.5 weeks now. I have felt like the eye of Sauron has been staring at me like so hard. I can feel it burning through my chest some days. Like I haven't even been to work out and since the weekend because I have these cramps from this job in my stomach because I just feel the wheels turning against me, and that's why I went just so hard today and applying for jobs. Like it's you get to a point where you realize you just have to get out. Like last night I was really gone. I was three sheets to the wind last night. And I was watching this escapes artist thing, and they had like Houdini, and they had Alcatraz, and they had this guy who got into a the wheel well of an airplane and flew from Havana to Madrid, I think, in Spain, and survived somehow. That's how I feel right now about work. Like I want to climb into the wheel well of a jet airplane and so it will take me somewhere else in the world other than here. That's how badly I woke up this morning and I thought, you know what? That guy could sit up there, get frozen for 9 hours just to escape the hell of what it is to work in corporate America. A lot of us, we'd all be lining up to get into that wheel well in order to get out of this country. And they demonetized my live stream from yesterday, too. YouTube demonetized it because enough people complained about my anti political garbage. And I looked at it this morning because it wasn't like that yesterday. And I'm like, oh, look, it's yellow today. So they got me on that one. So that I think that's the first video since I started the news since the reboot that has been demonetized. And a lot of it has to do with just being right. I've been telling you guys for months. I don't know why no one else realized the similarities between 2016 and 2024. Like to me, the writing was on the wall from day one. There's no way that Hillary was going anywhere, despite everyone. Like, I didn't even get the cheering. Like, you guys, come on. Anyhow, moving on to our final talking point. Working in a place that treats crises as normal can wear you down over time, making it hard to see any future in the job. My first senior manager used to have this saying. He would say, when everything is an emergency, nothing is an emergency. And today they had to emergency hire a temp worker for someone that just walked out of the job in another office. And I'm like, well, they hired them, I believe, yesterday or this morning, and but they needed to start working tomorrow. So I had to tell my boss. My boss absolutely hates it when I have to take care of emergencies. And I'm like, emergencies happen here every single day because I manage 25 offices, including three virtual ones. And you're like, okay, well, if you manage that many offices, at some point every single day, there's going to be an emergency somewhere. And you just get used to it. You just have to hop into your car and go deal with this because you can't wait till the next day when it comes to them needing technology. They have to have it in order to be able to do their jobs. Everyone in America that does a white collar job depends on one of those shiny little machines to be in front of them so that they can stick their hands out and be put into handcuffs and then be chained to that keyboard for 8+ hours a day. That's exactly how I feel. Not only am I chained, my hands are chained to the keyboard, but I have leggings that are chained to the keyboard too. Because today I I didn't go to lunch. I didn't take a single break. The only time that I left my desk is when I absolutely had to go to the delivery place. And I was just like, I got there, I had to unload my entire vehicle. And that's the thing. It's I have to unload and load and unload an entire vehicle full of cardboard boxes, and just like, it wears you down. Even like sometimes I'll look over at Gen Z and I can tell he's all like bent over from lifting things all day long, and I'm just look at him and it's like, dude, this kind of work might be too hard for you. Just kind of the way that I think about Mello and her body being bruised to next Tuesday from all of the things that she has to do all day for what I would consider to be a very small paycheck. But anyhow, do I have any toxic positivity today? No. I just coming to the realization that your job doesn't want you there. Sometimes you go into denial, right? Even after I got my annual review, I was just like, it's not that bad. Getting a 1 out of 5 because your boss thinks you're incompetent. That's really what it says to you is you are incompetent. And I'm like, you know what? It didn't feel good, and it's time for me to get out of here because there's no improvement, and everyone has to come to this conclusion. Usually Evil Corp does it for you. Like that other girl that I know where she got fired 6 weeks ago, and ironically enough, it's been 6 weeks of her not being able to find a job. And it's one of the uh, president's biggest pet peeves is like when I tell him there's no opportunity out there for upward mobility. It just absolutely grinds his gears when I say that. He's like, "Why do you always have to be so negative?" I'm like, "What's there to be positive about?" And that type of mentality among the proletariat against rich people makes them uncomfortable because it makes them have to start feeling responsible when, remember, your financial failures are your own fault because you didn't get a better job.